Hey there, everyone. Mazarok here, and today is definitely a topic of hot contention in the WoW community. Is should healers do DPS? And we're going to be focusing this conversation on Mythic Plus in particular, because healing is a different ballgame and totally understandable. We're not going to go there. But we're going to talk about Mythic Plus in particular here, and I do want to say we, because I do have my good friend here, Hatsu, who we have been running almost 200 plus keys a season together. For example, this is my Mythic Plus Raider IO. These are my 5 most played with, and he's on here twice. And I think we're at like 180 runs combined to get together, and that's low. In the previous 2 seasons, we had broken 200 together both times. So we're fairly knowledgeable on what we need to do, and this is a conversation towards the average player base. Because if you're going to, let's say, healers don't need to do DPS and only use, in higher keys you need that. This is not an argument about higher keys. This is a debate, and it's not a debate, we're both on the same side. This is a conversation on why healers should do DPS in all keys. Yes, all keys. This is the 15 to 20 range. This is the one where most people spend the most amount of time. This is the conversation that we're going to have, and we're going to be using this forum post, Are Healers That Don't Do DPS Considered Lazy, as kind of just a background and a quick chat. Before we do get into this conversation, though, please like, comment, subscribe. We're destroying the 2,800 mark, and we're well on the way to 29. You guys, thank you so much for all the support. There is a key review video link down below if you would like some coaching. There's a Patreon link down below. Thank you to all my new patrons and the new ones. We're getting to a point where I'm going to have to start putting them up on the screen to thank them for their patronage. If you want to have continue this discussion as well, there is a Discord link down below and a Twitch link down below where you can where we can continue that conversation. So, Hatsu, this is definitely, let's give a little background on why we're even having this conversation. Last week in 2 runs that I did, sorry, my phone keeps going off silent and it's driving me up the wall. I run 2 keys in a row with pug healers who refuse to do DPS. And I mean blatantly, outright refuse to do DPS and said it's not their job. And frankly, we're both on the same page where we think that is just not true for many different reasons. And then last night, we ran a 16 gambit, started to anyway. We did the first big pull right at the start with Bloodlust, and we're going in. I was on my bear, full Incarn mode with the Ursox Legendary. I'm at 99 stacks of Necrotic, and I'm not taking 1 HP point of damage. The Resto Shaman that we had pugged popped his Earth Elemental at the start of a pull. Yeah! But doesn't attack anything. So all Rocky did, or Dwayne did, was sit by his side and look at him. What's the point? So, and then he didn't do any healing because he stood in mechanic, died, and then the pull went to shit from there. My Incarn ran out, and as I let my stacks drop, we just didn't have a healer to keep things up. It went to shit. And I quickly was like, I'm going to run this at a 15 with a healer that wants to do at least a lick of damage. Because, come on. So, this has prompted us to kind of discuss this a little bit further and kind of go on. And I've already spoken for 3.5 minutes now. Holy fuck, does that ever go by quick. So, Hatsu, I want your take on this as a healer, and as a healer main pretty much in Mythic Plus, because you don't do a whole lot of raiding, you primarily focus on Mythic Plus, correct?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Hatsu. I main Shaman, Priest, and Holy Paladin. And yeah, I can't believe that this is a thing that is happening now, that healers are advocating to not do damage. It's the most toxic thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah, and the thing is too, is both of us here, we're not advocating for healers that have to just pump as much as possible and never do healing. No. Put yourself on the board. Any bit, so for me as a tank perspective, the quicker a pull goes, the less defensives I have to use. The less defensives I have to use, the more defensives I have for the next pull. And the better I can manage those defensives, right? Because that's the whole goal. If you have to
absolutely
in
M+, offense is the best defense. The quicker you can kill an enemy, the less casts are going to go off, the less the tank has to do, the quicker you can move on to the next pull. So anything that can help facilitate killing the mobs faster is going to always help you out. So whether you're doing 2k or 7k or whatever, every little bit helps.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocates here, right? Okay, so healers are saying that healers... So let's say the healers that are advocating for no DPS, they're saying they want to focus on healing. Well, the argument to be made here is if the pack lasts longer and there's more cast going off, there's more healing to be done. Are healers just really advocates for their healing job by not doing DPS, meaning they can do more DPS, they can do more healing because the pack lives too long?
Well, the Shaman was the perfect example, though. Most healing classes have some DPS component baked in that is facilitating what your class is supposed to be doing. So, yeah, he had the Earth Ellie Legendary, like it says on Wowhead, like you're supposed to, but because he didn't cast any damage doing abilities, the Earth Elemental didn't go into the pack, and it wasn't doing anything. So that could be extended to, like, every healing class. There's always going to be something that either is a proc that is going to initiate more healing, or it's going to unlock instant cast abilities that are normally casted abilities, and the game wants you to play that way, where you're DPSing primarily. You want to always have an enemy targeted, but then you're healing with either mouse over macros or a heal bot add-on to click on the raid frames, whatever it is. But there's so much about every healing class that if you're not targeting an enemy at all times, you're missing out on a huge portion of that class.
Yeah, because some of the more popular soulbinds as well, like let's go over to Mechanicos, where you gain a haste buff by attacking enemies, right? So let's say you're a holy priest and you use Divine Star, you hit a bunch of enemies with it, you do some healing, you gain 15% haste for all the enemies that you hit, but you don't gain 15% haste, you don't gain that haste buff if you don't hit enemies. It seems like a wasted soulbind if you refuse to do DPS, but you're even spec'd into gaining more haste, which is going to help you heal better, by the way, because you're going to be able to get your casts off faster if you've done some damage. And
exactly.
So speaking of this, I said 3 runs. It's actually 4. I ran with a Holy Paladin on Tuesday night, who literally it was a ranged Holy Paladin.
Oh no! Oh no!
Now,
please, this is not a conversation. This is a plea to the community. Please stop doing this, okay? Please.
Okay, now I have to assume that he was just trying to get used to Spitefuls, and we were a heavy melee group. And he was just trying to get used to Spitefuls and just afraid to get clapped. I can understand that mentality. I have run with different Holy Paladins who just get...
Sometimes you'll let some Crusader strikes go to the wayside to be safe. That's fine. Yeah. But you need to have Justice of Light, so you have to do Justice on cooldown. If you're running Mad Paragon, you have to use Hammer of Wrath to extend your wings time. If you're Necrolord, you have to use your Necro Hammer in order to proc your Word of Glories.
Yeah, now that I mention it, he was on the board once for one judgment. So he did not, but I think he was running a Kyrian Glimmer build. I honestly think he was deadly afraid of Spitefuls and just did everything possible.
If he's running Kyrian
Glimmer, wait, doesn't Crusader Strike reduce?
Yes, and also you can use your Holy Fire or Holy Light to do damage, and it actually does a dot to all enemies that have Glimmer on them. So Glimmer works 2 ways. It's offensive and defensive. That's one of the biggest strengths of it. You can use Divine Toll on an enemy, and then you get 5 enemy targets all with Glimmer. So every time you cast Holy Shock, it's going to do damage to all 5 of those targets.
So, and especially too, we got to talk about the self-sustainability of tanks in the current Mythic Plus meta, right? Pretty much every tank is fully self-sustainable at this point, aside from Prot Warrior. But Prot Warrior is in a spot right now where it can just not take any damage and require so little healing that it's maybe 1 global every 10 seconds if they're playing it right.
Yeah, if a tank isn't beating the healer in heals overall at the end of the dungeon, then the tank is doing something wrong. Tanks should always be out healing the healers now. Almost, I think that's true with all of your tanks, right?
Yep.
Bear, maybe not.
Nope, Bear, absolutely. Bear's beating everybody.
Yeah.
With Ursox and the amount of incarnations you get, you're not... As long as you're pulling sufficiently big around Incarn, there's literally no way that healer's ever going to be in DPS. In healing, sorry.
that may be part of it, is that healers are feeling a little bit ego-driven, and they're like, oh, I want to be on the top of the healing charts. I'm a healer, and that's why they're dedicating all of their global cooldowns to healing abilities, because they want to be on the top of that healing chart. But set your ego aside, realize that this is the tank meta. Tanks don't really need much healing at all. And if the group is decent, they're not taking avoidable damage, they're not going to need much healing. So what else are you going to do at that time?
Yeah.
You have to do damage.
Especially with how much Blood Death Knight I've played this season, I have seen so many healers who have focused me as their healing target for 60% of their healing, and then my Death Strike does, like, stupid amounts of overhealing, because the moment I hit 30, I barely even have a global before they try and prop me back up, but I never needed to be propped up to begin with. Like, I was fine. Like, you've seen me do 31k HPS, right? You've seen me do stupid amounts of healing on, I mean, I did 18k in a DOS healing on my warrior. Like, what is this, right?
Yeah, it's a matter of trust. You have to trust the tank and know when they're in trouble and when they're not in trouble. So when you're straight pugging, maybe you want to pump the tank with a little more heals than you would with someone you're familiar with, but you still have to let them play their class at the same time. Especially, like you were saying, doubling up on healing, having massive amounts of overhealing, that's all just a waste.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we have a comment in this one. Yeah, but when then the tank can just pull more. Good tanks don't let healers DPS IMO. It's not your job. It's a waste of your presence. What do you think about that comment on this forum? It's loaded. It's loaded.
Yeah. There might be some merit to the fact that, okay, the tank can pull more, maybe, but there's also a finite amount that a tank can pull, because it's not just about raw damage and auto attacks that the enemies are doing. It's also about all the things that have to be interrupted. When you're doing 15 or higher keys, if certain abilities get off, it doesn't matter how good the tank is, how good your healers are, people are going to die. So there is a limit to what you can pull. So you can't pull the whole half the dungeon just because you're pumping the tank full of heals. Things are going to go wrong. People are going to die. So I don't think that's a great argument.
Morning, guys, by the way. I don't know if you guys are doing a video or something.
Yes, I am. We're doing a healer DPS discussion video.
Okay.
All right, you were saying, Hatsu?
Yeah. That's all I got on that.
That's all you got on that.
I don't know I don't know what to say except for you're wrong. And
it is because especially
just look at our timed keys. Look at who's successful and what they're doing, and then look at what unsuccessful people are doing. So go to Raider.io. Look at people's gear who have 3,000, 4,000 IO. See what kind of gear they're running. Watch how these people are playing, and you're going to see that even at the highest level, some level of healer DPS is required, because it's baked into your spec. You're missing out on procs. You're missing out on global cooldowns. You're missing out on, like you said, with certain covenant abilities and certain soul binds. You're missing out on big buffs both for yourself and for the party. There's no way to argue that you can only heal.
Because, like, especially, let's talk about the start of a pull with a bear, right? They pop Incurn, they pop Ravenous Frenzy, they go to town. What are you healing at that point? What are you doing if you're not having to heal anything? Because, like, your tank has a constant 40k absorb shield up for 30 straight seconds, and their HP bar has yet to go below 1%. So it's still just 100, like, they stay above 100% the entire time.
Exactly. Don't these people get bored? Just sitting there waiting for someone to take damage? I would think that, you're playing a game, you're trying to pog out, you're trying to have fun. Don't you want to, like, be involved?
Yeah. So, like, this comment here, and this one I love. If you help kill the mob, it dies faster, which is effectively healing due to the dead mobs can't do damage. Like,
and that's what I said. Offense is the best defense when it comes to keys. The quicker you kill shit, the less you're going to have to heal. It just makes everything go easier.
Absolutely. And, like, the community is definitely divided on this, and I just don't understand why you would bring a healer to a key that refuses to do any damage, but has no healing to do for half a pull. Right? I've definitely seen...
I don't want to just sound like some toxic asshole.
No, absolutely. But this is something that needs to get out here and be chatted about, right? Because definitely healer meta has evolved so much. Now, if Blizzard, for example, would change game development a little bit or dungeon design a little bit to where there is a lot more constant damage going to DPS that require healers to constantly... Like, the argument here is, I mean, if you have nothing to heal, you're doing damage. You're pressing buttons. That's the main thing to talk about and be like, yeah, okay. No one's saying, hey, yeah, your hunter's half dead, but keep hitting Shadow Word Pain.
Exactly. And if we're talking classic, it's a different story. Yeah, if you're playing straight classic, then it's a different game. But we're talking about retail Shadowlands WoW. And in retail Shadowlands WoW, there isn't that much to heal where you only have to heal. There's always going to be downtime and times where you need to keep your DPS rotation going. But I think a part of it is also how certain people approach the game. If you're playing with the base UI without click casting or without mouse over macros, and you're individually targeting every person you have to heal, then of course it's going to be hard to do damage because you have to target it, and you have to target your party members, and then you have to retarget an enemy and then retarget your party members. That if you're playing like that, that's maybe why it's so difficult for you to do DPS. So you may want to think about maybe enhancing your gameplay a little bit with mouse over macros or a click casting add-on, or even using the in-game click casting. Because if you're manually targeting all of the people in your party to do healing, you're really wasting a lot of time.
Okay, so these are things that you have to learn through, let's say, we're talking about kind of 15 dungeons and up here, right? These are things that healers or new healers coming into the game obviously have to learn between Mythic Zeros and plus 10, 14s, whatever number you want to kind of talk about before things start getting slightly difficult. Yes, I know there's some people that are going to be watching this like 15s aren't difficult. We know, but 15s are difficult for some people, right? It's not every play. Like KSM is only achieved by like something like 15 to 20% of the entire player base that even run Mythic Plus. So there's discussions to be had about that. But how good is the game at teaching you that this needs to happen and that you can do these things between 0 and 14? My sentiment here is that it really doesn't do that great of a job at giving you the toolkits, and you're pretty reliant on community feedback, which, let's admit, can be crazy-ass toxic at times, to learn how to do some of these mouse over macros or go find outside sources to be able to get this information that you need to know. Because if you don't have the willingness to even go find that outside information to get better, then you're really being held back by the fact that, you know, you're not really being shown how you can be doing these things, like maybe some sort of inner UI, or like when you start on Dungeon Island or whatever it is with the
exactly.
They could be like, hey, you have damage buttons as a holy spec, like you can hit them.
And this is something that used to be in the game, so I was trying to tell you this the other day. In Mist of Pandaria, before you could queue for the dungeon or the raid finder, you had to complete these trials. And it was, you picked which role, tank, healer, or DPS, and then it had a little mock-up of a party scenario, where if you're the healer, you had to, heal these NPCs while they're doing this little, mock dungeon pull. But it told you have to do DPS as well, and you had to kill one of the ads while you're also healing your party members. So I think that is something that needs to get reinstituted in the game, because they are trying to push for bringing in new players. Dragonflight's going to be awesome, and they're expecting an influx of new players, and they do need to educate, because like you said, there's nothing in the game right now that teaches you actually how to play like that. So maybe they should have a little intro dungeon at the end of Exile's Reach where it goes over that. You select what your main role you would like to be, and then it helps you with those more advanced tips, saying, do push DPS if you're a tank, do DPS if you're a healer, use your healing abilities if you're a DPSer, you use your utility if you're a DPSer. Because this could be the same thing. If a hunter just sits there spamming aim shot all day and never hits tar trap or whatever, any of their stuns, they're not doing their part either. It's supposed to be a group effort, and everybody uses all their buttons and all of their utility to help achieve the goal.
Absolutely. Mythic Plus is an absolute group effort, and when people don't aid to that group or say it's not my job, it's okay. This is like the person, like, we all have this one person that we've worked with at some point or another who was asked to do something. You know, hey, I need help with this. Can you do this? And they look you dead in the eye and say, it's not my job, and just walk away and fuck off. How much do you just want to slap that person when they said that, right? Like, nobody likes that guy at work. Nobody likes that guy or girl. Help out where you can and be a team player to get things done. I mean, it all depends on what your job is, and if what that thing they're asking you can help you die, then that's not good. Yeah, absolutely, it's not my job. But if you're working at a McDonald's and someone asks you to go get fries, and you say it's not my job, fuck off. Just go get the fries, man. Like... Then this is how trivial this conversation should be. Like, you have buttons. Why are you standing around doing nothing? And Mythic Plus, and the people are like, oh, it's a speedrun mentality. Well, yeah, we have a timer, and we want to beat it. That's the entire idea of Mythic Plus. If I wanted to spend 2 hours in a dungeon, I wouldn't be running Mythic Plus with a timer. You know, I'd be going to do raid or something where there is no timer and things like, you know, but this is why we run this, is to beat that timer and to be fast at it and to be good at it and to get better. And it is a group mentality where if you just don't press your buttons, you're not doing anything, you're not helping out. And I'll tell you one thing, when a healer doesn't do damage, like, I absolutely notice how much quicker a run goes with a healer that does almost no damage, like 200 damage overall, or 4 to 5k. I absolutely notice that run speeds up incredibly fast by just them pressing some buttons. And sometimes, I mean, Shaman's a great example of how much easier this is. You know, you hit Vesper Totem and you just Earth Ellie and you just kind of let loose, and big damage outgoes. But some, I mean, like, Resto Druids have a little bit of a harder time with damage, right? They actually have to focus on doing more, so it's a little bit difficult, but there's no reason you can't, like, Moonfire up the group and hit Sunfire a couple of times, or whatever have you not. And then, by the time there's some outgoing damage, a Deadly Thrust goes off, or something like that, then you can, you know, pretty easily start topping people up and hitting that. And, you know, kind of, or pre-ramping if you have to, because that's definitely a thing. If you know a big mechanic's coming up, you can pre-ramp it up or whatever have you not. But there's so much downtime. Like, why do you play the game with a group to not help the group?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to leave it here. What are your opinions? And I know this is probably going to be heated down below. What are your opinions on healer damage in keys in particular? We're not going to talk about raid because, I mean... Raid's raid. It is what it is. I mean, asking healers to do damage on Heroic Ragolon pre-nerfs, absolutely, I understand. No, they've got plenty of healing to fucking do. But, you know, in keys, it is what it is, man. And that's personally my opinion. Hatsu, thank you very much for coming out here and having this chat with me. And
yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Let me know what you guys think down below. Remember, let's keep it civil. It's YouTube. I totally expecting the Wild West shit show, but let's try and keep it civil a little bit here. You guys have yourselves a good day. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe, and thank you all for all the support, everyone. Have yourselves a good one. Bye.